Israel and Hamas begin a 4-day truce ahead of the expected release of hostages, but the IDF warns Palestinians in southern Gaza not to head north. 3 people dead in Kherson after what Kyiv says was an intentional Russian strike on civilians, while Moscow mourns the death of a reporter killed on the front line.
Hundreds take to the streets of Dublin in violent protests after a stabbing injured 5 people, including 3 children.
Bulgaria's Prime Minister Nikolai Denkov tells Euronews that he feels his country is a hostage to the debate over Schengen enlargement.
Is Ridley Scott's new blockbuster Napoleon a beautiful production or a film riddled with inaccuracies? French viewers are divided.
After weeks of fighting, the sound of birdsong from Israeli positions overlooking the ruins of northern Gaza, where Israel and Hamas militants have begun a 4-day truce. Trucks packed with essential supplies have also entered the besieged enclave at the Rafah border crossing. Israel says 4 fuel tankers have also arrived. The pause in fighting comes ahead of the scheduled release later today of some 50 Israeli hostages held by the militant group since the 7th of October. While there have been reports of gunfire inside the Gaza Strip, these displaced Palestinians say they are heading home.
التهدئة احنا بننظر لها يعني كتنفس من ال 45 يوم او 48 يوم الضغط اللي مضوا علينا كمواطنين غزيين. انا مواطن من مدينة غزة ونازح على مدينة رفح هنا. كنت اتمنى ان تكون التهدئة تشمل كل قطاع غزة عشان اروح اشوف بيتي المهدوم واشوف ايش الاشياء المتبقية من.
But Israel has warned Palestinians living in Khan Yunis and towns in southern Gaza not to head north.
إلى سكان قطاع غزة، الحرب لم تنتهي. الهدنة الإنسانية مؤقتة. منطقة شمال قطاع غزة هي منطقة حرب خطيرة وممنوع التجول بها.
Israel has also released footage of its army destroying tunnels under the Al-Shifa hospital. It says they are being used in Hamas-led operations. This is the war-ravaged village of Kornobayivka in Ukraine's Kherson region, where a Russian strike using cluster munitions killed 3 people and wounded 5 more on Thursday. Ukraine's Interior Minister Kimevko says more than 60 residential buildings were damaged in the daylight attack. According to reports circulating on social media, Russian troops intentionally targeted civilians. More than 1,000 kilometres away in Moscow, colleagues of a Russian war correspondent killed on Ukraine's front line lay flowers outside the headquarters of a state television network. The Russian Ministry of Defence says Boris Maksudov died from injuries sustained in a drone attack in the Zaporizhia region while he was working on a story about Ukrainian troops allegedly shelling civilians. The MOD also released this video of what it says are Russian soldiers firing a D-20 howitzer gun towards Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region.
Hundreds of rioters took to the streets of Dublin on Thursday night after a series of stabbing injured 3 children and 2 adults. 1 is in serious condition. Agitators blamed Ireland's immigration policies for the stabbing, and protesters fired flares and fireworks at the police cordon around the scene of the incident. Police say the violent clashes mobilised more than 400 police officers.
We have a complete lunatic hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology, and also then this disruptive tendency here, and engaged then in serious violence. Now we are drafting in resources to deal with that, and that will be dealt with properly.
Police say they have a definite line of inquiry regarding the stabbing and are not looking for anyone else in connection with the violence outside the school in the heart of the Irish capital. An investigation is ongoing.
Bulgaria's Prime Minister Nikolai Denkov tells Euronews that he feels his country is a hostage to the debate over Schengen enlargement. Denkov spoke to MEPs in the European Parliament in Strasbourg this week about his vision for Europe. He says Bulgaria has fulfilled all the EU's criteria towards joining the Schengen zone.
When I met the Chancellor Nehammer in Austria, he was very clear that he has no any problems with Bulgaria and Romania per se today. His problem is how the Schengen area is working in general. So this is more like a discussion between Austria and the European Union rather than between Bulgaria and Austria. Of course, we are the victims of this situation. As I said today, I feel a little bit as a hostage of this situation. I hope that there will be a positive development in December.
The Prime Minister also rejects criticism from Hungary and Serbia after Bulgaria announced plans to tax the transfer of Russian gas through its territory. Both receivers of it, Budapest and Belgrade, fear that the measure will lead to higher fuel prices for their citizens. But the Prime Minister of Bulgaria says the law is not directed at them.
The way this tax is implemented does not put any requirements for payments from the receiving countries like Hungary or the other countries. It is defined in such a way that it should be paid by Gazprom. And I had discussions with the Hungarian Prime Minister Orban, with the Serbian Prime Minister, and I told them this is not against your citizens, we don't want to hurt them in any way. What we want is to take some of the profit of the Russian war machine, because it's fueled by Gazprom, literally in some way.
Bulgaria has previously blocked North Macedonia's EU membership talks over concerns at the rights of national minorities. A deal was reached on the issue last year, though, and Sofia has no further demands towards North Macedonia.
No, we have no further demands. There is a very clear decision from the last year, 2022. It is between North Macedonia and the European Union, actually. So this is a matter of negotiations with them, not with Bulgaria today. And we have no further requirements. What we expect is this agreement to be fulfilled by the side of North Macedonia as it is expected.
The Western Balkans entering the EU is in Bulgaria's interest politically and economically, but the Prime Minister warns that new countries must be true members of the Union once they join.
Turkey's central bank has delivered another huge interest rate hike, pushing up its policy rate by 5 points to 40%, the highest rate in 20 years. Ankara is fighting an ongoing battle against double-digit inflation that has left households struggling to afford food and other basic goods. Analysts welcomed the rate hike, which was well above expectations. President Erdogan's unorthodox policy of cutting interest rates to fight inflation has been blamed for the country's economic turmoil.
The killing of a 22-year-old student at the hands of her ex-boyfriend has highlighted the issue of violence against women here in Italy, triggering a heated political debate across the country. We know that more than 100 women have been killed in the country since the beginning of the year, and these episodes are often referred to as femicides. Now, the word femicide refers to a murder of a woman based on her gender. Now, it's difficult to get an estimate of the total number of this type of murders in each European country. What we do know is that Italy is not the country with the highest number of femicides in the EU. But despite that, the case has become the centre of a media storm that is not yet over. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni vowed to raise more awareness on the issue, and as a consequence of that, the Italian Parliament recently approved a new law introducing more protection for women. Vigils, protests have been organised across the country in the past few days, and a national rally has been called on Saturday, which is also the day that marks the International Day against gender violence. Now, we spoke to a member of Non Una Di Meno, a feminist movement that is behind Saturday's event, and here is what she told us. Take a listen.
Penso che siamo a un punto di svolta perché molte più persone hanno preso coscienza di questo problema e penso che molte più persone si uniranno alle lotte per cambiare lo stato delle cose. Troviamo anche 1000 proclami elettorali, soprattutto dalle forze politiche al governo, che però poi non stanno facendo nulla per arginare questi femminicidi, se non appunto proporre delle risposte securitarie che però non servono a nulla, perché ciò che è necessario è creare una cultura, affrontare il maschilismo e il sessismo come parte di un sistema che ci opprime a livello sistemico e istituzionale.
Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
French and English-speaking film critics are divided on Ridley Scott's new blockbuster, Napoleon. In Fontainebleau, where the former French emperor once held residence, some viewers described the film as a grandiose and beautiful production, while others were disappointed by historical inaccuracies.
C'est de la merde. Non, j'ai pas aimé. C'est dommage de mettre autant d'argent dans une si belle production pour raconter autant de choses fausses.
Ça commence déjà par une énorme contre-vérité historique. Le Bonaparte n'a jamais assisté à la décapitation de Marie-Antoinette, et puis comme ça tout le long. Et puis alors des scènes vraiment pour mettre entre les yeux des enfants.
Quelquefois, j'ai quand même été un petit peu interpellée par le personnage de Napoléon dans son intimité. Je ne le voyais pas tout à fait comme ça, mais après tout, qu'en sait-on? Mais c'est un film magnifique. Ça fait très longtemps que je n'ai pas vu un film aussi grandiose.
Depictions of Napoleon have shifted over the past 200 years, making him out to be a genius reformer or a tyrant who caused the death of millions. This time, viewers can decide for themselves if Scott's new film gives this complex figure justice.